Who am I? Welcome to Groundhog Day. And it really is Groundhog Day this time, as I come into this space and once again try to connect the dots, try to help us all understand better who we are, where we came from, where we're going, why we're here. Asking all the questions, asking more questions than giving answers, by the way. However, I do have insights to share. I am not without resources, and neither are you. So, who am I? Who am I? Who am I as an individual? Who am I as a species? Who am I as a creator? Who am I as an energy being? And most importantly, and this will bring us to everywhere we're trying to get to today, who am I as source energy? The reason that's the important question is because the point of my whole presentation is we need to make a radical shift here on planet Earth. And I have long known it. I'm not a young person. Many decades I've been thinking about this. And for the longest time, I came at it from kind of a position of despair. It was hard for me to look at because it just seemed so off. Look at what we're doing to the planet. Look at how we are to each other. Look at the suffering. Look at the destruction, and look at the potential unsustainability of the nature of our economic and energy systems. They're absolutely not sustainable. Nothing that we do is really sustainable, and it's very marginal. The way we operate on planet Earth, we do not seem to be in a field of abundance. We appear to be in a field of scarcity and lack. We have created a world that appears to be a zero-sum game. A zero-sum game in a paradigm of scarcity where everyone is scrabbling over a finite pie. There are finite resources and there's a certain number of us, and so you divide the amount into how many of us, and so how much of that does it leave for every one of us. And if somebody takes more than their share, then that leaves less for the rest of us. We believe that conditions are primary and emotions are secondary. Quite frankly, this paradigm is incorrect. We do not live in a paradigm of competition, zero-sum game, paradigm of scarcity. We don't. The paradigm that we live in is actually one of cooperation, um, infinite potential, an infinite pie. There is an infinite pie. We can keep making the pie more and more and more. Uh, our paradigm, our actual paradigm that we are in, is one of abundance. And in all of this, in understanding our physical systems, turns out that our emotions are primary and the conditions around us are secondary. And you may not have any idea what I mean by that, but we're going to talk about our emotional guidance system because it does have to do with our relationship with our source mind. That's why we're going to talk about it, because we're talking about source energy today. What is it? How does it work? Who am I in it? And then we're going to question where we came from and our design. And were we indeed designed? And is that not just a metaphor for incremental evolutionary processes over long periods of time? That's how I was created. Well, there might have been a little bit more to it than that. But certainly evolution has a part in this because we are evolving beings. We are evolving, expanding beings. And I think we need to understand who we are for two reasons. One is it would stop the nonsense that I see occurring on planet Earth. You know, this squabbling for supposedly finite resources, this seeing each other as the enemy. I'll tell you right now, spoiler alert, there's going to be a lot of spoiler alerts in this program this morning, spoiler alert. But there is no villain, there is no enemy. You may think there is because individuals do pick up the energy patterns in the field and run with them, and then you can stop and look specifically and go, oh, look, you're the one carrying the energy, so you're the villain. When in actual fact, because we are a quantum field, because we are a group phenomenon, we can't get away from that, even though you actually do have in complete power and control over your own experience. So, in a way, you are divinely autonomous. That is true. But we are also divinely integrated into the field around us. And the things that are happening to us are bigger than just us. And it's a cop out to point at the individuals only and say, it's you, it's your fault. What happens when we do that is we completely miss the greater understanding that we're supposed to be getting to, which is understanding this field phenomenon and understanding how to quiet it down forever. I mean, I don't mean shut it down forever. I mean, make it go quiet. The way that we misunderstand ourselves is why the energy patterns appear in the field around us. It's like we're creating the demons that then certain individuals in our tribe, pick up this energy, wield it destructively. I call it Shiva energy. Actually, when we create things that are unsustainable and out of alignment, it creates Shiva energy in the quantum field. I know that sounds peculiar. It's my own expression. No one else uses it that way. But it does create this kind of polarity in the field that then we turn into this us and them thing. And I promise you, first of all, another spoiler alert, there is no them. There is only us. We're the only ones here. We are the only ones here. And actually, one more spoiler, there's only one of us here. So being able to understand us in this way really, really, really helps. Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? How do I use my consciousness? How do I set it up? How do I think about the grid that surrounds me? How do I understand? How do I understand my own emotions, my own emotional guidance system? And this understanding is going to take us farther than this. It's going to take us to the point where we get the Holy Grail for humanity. And I promise you, it is the Holy Grail. We get off fossil fuels. And not just off fossil fuels, but off of every form of elitist, centrally organized energy base that we have. Everything from, we don't want to be on centralized energy sources. And actually, we don't have to spend any time thinking about what we don't want, because frankly, just know that at the end of this discussion, you're going to understand that there is a pathway out of the wilderness that humanity has created for himself. And that way out is our understanding of source energy. And it's going to bring us to 2 points. It's going to get us off of fossil fuels. And furthermore, let's see, I've written something down here. What did I say? And furthermore, an understanding of who we are in reference to source energy will bring us individually more joyful and satisfying lives. And isn't that the truth? So you are the creator of your own experience. Every single one of us is single-handedly responsible for our own creation, the creation of our own lives. And you have more power there than you realize. You don't necessarily have the outside power to physically change the conditions in a hard way around you. You do have some power, your physical body can move some things around, But your true power lies in something else. Your true power lies in your ability to navigate your own field. You can navigate the field. You can orchestrate your own rendezvous with what character traits. Um, you have to come at it from a traditionally slightly different way than at least modern Western humans come at it from this very outside, physical, materiality based. Well, I want you to know one thing. We live in a universe that is morphogenetic. It is a field that can literally become anything. And there are rules about the way this field becomes things. There's um, particular tracks that it works on. There's such a thing as momentum. So you don't just jump into a place and in a disjointed way you plop something completely else down. That happens in our dreams because our dreams are the same exact mechanism but not nailed down to the momentum of the physicality that we are in this physical plane. So it's the same exact mechanism, but without that momentum. And we do kind of like the continuity. In any case, the continuity exists. It exists out there in reality. And who are you within it? So, um, you are a binary system on many different levels. You can look at yourself as a binary system from many different levels. The primary level, look at it this way: you are a binary being in the sense that you are the formless coming into form. That, I would pull that one back to the most fundamental position. You are the formless coming into the form, and you live in a morphogenetic field so perfect, so able to change shape. Um, it's it's like we live in this magnificent 3D printer. You could almost think that that's what the quantum field is. Now, I don't really want to get too bogged down in that because, I don't mean that in a phantasmagorical way. But there is a real way that that is absolutely true, and humanity can make use of that truth in more ways than one. What is around you does not have to stay what it is. And as a matter of fact, it doesn't stay what it is. It never stays what it is. It is always morphing, fluxing, and changing. It is. You are in a morphogenetic field that is becoming, becoming, becoming. And evolving and expanding, too, by the way. It's not just becoming, it's becoming more. It's not just becoming something different, it's becoming more. And whatever it was is still what it is, but it's then more is added to it. And it's addition, addition, addition. It's more, more, more. You can't get away from that. However, you can, in understanding how it comes to be, um, the question is, how are you navigating within this constant change? And how are you coping with the fact that you are changing? You are changing, you are always changing. Here in the Western world, in the early part of the 21st century, I can say that I come from a paradigm that is focused upon the what is in place physically in the manifestation at this moment. Everybody is all, what's reality? What's real? You don't want to not think about what's real. The fact is, you got to understand how the next reality comes into being, how it moves from where it is now to where it's going to be 5 minutes from now, to 10 minutes from now, to 15, to an hour, to a day, to a week, to a year, to a. You get my idea. What is the fulcrum upon which this shifts? How is it moving? What's making it grow? How do I navigate it? How do I How do I guide my own steps into the life that I want to live? How do I find my dreams come true and my happily ever after? How do I do that? That's the question. Well, I'll tell you what the answer is. First of all, understand your design. You are a binary system. You are a binary being, and you have two minds. You actually have more minds than that, but let's boil it down this way. You have your physical, specific, looking at the now, specific items on the grid aspect of yourself. That self that is expirational, that is, you might think of it as your more conventional self, your self made of meat. Born here, die there, that self. Got a name, has a job, whatever. You are that self, but you are another self. And this other self, your relationship with this other self is the key to everything. It's key to the key to everything in your personal life. And then, as all of us recognize how we are designed and how this whole system is set up, as we recognize the whole thing has an inner being, that the source mind is actually on it, really truly on it. Do not worry, fear not, for all is well. But then get excited about this, because we can do this. We can understand ourselves. We can come to peace amongst ourselves, peace on earth, goodwill towards men. Isn't that what everyone on the planet wants more than everything? Except for the fact that I want peace after they give me back my stuff. After they give me back that territory, or that, they pay for their crimes, or, then we will have peace. No, you got to understand who you are. You got to understand this source energy thing. You got to understand that, well, it just is the way it is, and if we keep going the way we've been going, extinction is our lot. Now, the reason I say fear not, for all is well, because I don't actually think we're going to be going extinct. However, now, I don't know. I can't look everywhere at once, so it's hard for me to, go look at all the physical goings on and tell you for sure that what is or isn't happening out there. I can't do that. So it's hard for me to say, but others seem to be saying that we are on a rough track right now. And no one has told me that we've stopped using fossil fuels. As a matter of fact, I gassed my car up just the other day. So I'm pretty sure that paradigm isn't over. So even though I'm not out there looking at the bad shit, I know that the bad paradigm is still in place. We are still not at the place where we understand who we are and what source is. Truly, what source is. What our conventional physicists have done is they have decided that the quantum, the 0 point energy field is stochastic. It all cancels out, nothing to see here, and then gotta keep on fossil fuels. And if it's not fossil fuels, well, we'll allow some marginally efficient solar panels in, and we'll do nuclear, and okay, lithium batteries and electric cars sucking on to an electric power grid that is still mostly burning fossil fuels. This is not the scenario that's going to win, people. Now, in the front of this video, I've learned to embed other videos. So I've got the links to two other videos. One is the 37-minute full description in words of the mathematical paper, The Origin of Mass and the Nature of Gravity, which I'm going to put this is the abstract to that paper. It was published back in September. Now, the first of Nassim and his teams, I don't know who the other people on his teams would have been back in 2012. Could have been the same people. I don't know. I don't know these other people. Cyprian, somebody or other, and Olivier, Anyway, the first paper they published was back in 2012, but this one is their latest one on the origin of mass and the nature of gravity. And in my description of this video, if you're listening to this video, know that those two YouTube links in the beginning of at the description of my video is the description of the 37-minute description of this paper. I'm going to show you right now the 13 screenshots that I have captured from this paper. This is the mathematical and this is the physics paper describing where reality is coming from and what gravity really is. And this is the roadmap that's going to lead us to, first of all, energy independence from fossil fuels and this centralized social system that we keep gravitating towards because of the way our energy system is. Our financial system has grown into what it is because of the way our energy system is. And the whole thing is going to change in a beautiful way. Just the moment that we get off of that freaking black poison, that negro veneno. Done with it, done with it. So go back to this one. Turns out that it's all black holes. It's all black holes, all the way up and all the way down. And that multiverse that you keep hearing about, that infinite multiverse, it's nested universes. It's scalular. It's scaling. It's a scaling issue. Every proton is a black hole, and they obey all the mathematical rules that black holes do. They do Hawking evaporation through Hawking radiation. But a little proton black hole, I like to spell it with a W, a little black hole, because it is also holographically representative of all of in the Planck field of every proton is encoded the information of all the rest of the protons in all of the universe. All the rest of the mass in all the universe is encoded within the quantum field, the Planck field of every proton. Very cool. But you can see that a black hole proton is a very stable little entity. It looks like it will last approximately 10 to the 35 billion years when you do the mathematics, when you apply the formula for Hawking radiation. You get a black hole proton will last a very long time. We haven't come anywhere near the end of the protons in our universe right now. So we're going to go through the rest of these. Embedded in my description is the link to the full description of this 37-minute YouTube video. There's another thing I've put in there, and that is a link to a movie called The Lost Century and How to Reclaim It. It is a description. It is a documentary documenting the century that we have experienced of the suppression of all energy devices that could have taken us away from fossil fuels. It has not been natural that we have not gotten off of fossil fuels. Those who own the rights to that hundreds of trillions of dollars worth of current paradigm in our eco-environment system, hundreds of trillions of dollars worth of power and influence and their ability to amass all abundance towards themselves. It's actually a problem. But the reason we didn't get off of it 100 years ago, I believe, is not just because those nasty villains wouldn't let us, because when we understand who we are, and when we understand how source energy works, we will understand that no one can keep us from it. No one can stop you. When you know what you want, when you focus on what you want, when you focus in fundamentally in what is real and focus on what you want, you can walk right to it, because your inner being, you have a companion, by the way. So remember, you are a binary system, right? You're a binary system. You are the form and the formless. You are two minds. You are source mind and you are your physical specific mind. Who is this source mind and what is source thinking? I'll tell you what source is thinking. In general, I don't know specifically because it's source. It's keeping track of it. It keeps track of it. I can't. But what is source thinking? Source is busy looking at, well, knowing one thing and looking at something else. And I'm going to tell you in general terms what it is. Source is knowing everything that is. Knows where all the atoms are, knows where all the molecules are, knows what their temperatures are, knows which direction they're moving, their velocity, knows everything about everything physical. How does it know that? It knows it because of the way this Planck field is designed, the quantum field, this divine matrix that we are all embedded in, that we are all magnificently and divinely a part of. That's how it knows. It knows because the universe is holographic, and across the field, what is happening at all times is all the information of the allness is downloading to all the bits, all the parts, and the information of all the parts is uploading back to the allness at the same time. It's like every plonk, 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 plonk. This field is updating, and it's updating through this cosmic jiggle of space-time, this cosmic interference pattern where all the plonks, all the little frequencies, all the little they're interfering with one another. They're all everything interacting with everything all the time. That's what source energy is, and reality is flowing across the event horizon of this it's just so cool. We live in a universe that is so cool, cool, cool. And yet, right in this moment, humanity appears to be in a frightful position, an absolutely frightful position. But the only thing that's causing this frightfulness is our energy paradigm. And the fact is it's not sustainable. Our entire economic system is based on it. Just like it's the gold standard, only it's the black gold standard. And this energy, this paradigm is not sustainable, and so the foundation is rotten and it's crumbling, and everything, all of our trust, the way that we do business with one another, that I can go down to my local store and hand them a couple of paper bills and they hand me real goods and stuff. This whole system is based on a crumbling foundation. And so it's it's also not a very good system because it actually doesn't flow enough energy to everyone who needs energy to grow their food, energy to produce their shelter and their clothing. There are certain things that we need, and the rest of it is all just stuff that we want, for play and for fun and all that. But we need food, we need shelter, we need that gives human beings safety, because we're not really all that fierce of creatures. We're hairless all over our bodies. We need to be clothed, or we get cut up too easily, or we get cold, or we get hot and sunburned. We're not really very physically well designed. We need our accoutrement, if you will. So the system as it is right now is not fulfilling the needs of billions of us. And that is causing a great deal of pain and angst. And that negative emotion itself is this kind of Shiva energy, this dissatisfaction, this out of alignment, this not feeling good about who we are and what's going on in this world. And really the only problem is, well, it's twofold. But it boils down to the same thing. We don't know who we are. Who am I? Who am I? Who am I as source energy? Who am I as a biotechnology? Who am I? I'm a binary system. I have these two minds, and one is the source mind, which I just said it's looking it well. I'll tell you what it's looking at. But first, what it knows, what it sees, what it is aware of, first of all, is everything physical. Everything physical your source mind is aware of. Where it is, how it's moving. The reason is that there is a rhyme and reason to the way everything is moving. It is moving on disks of spin. Spin coming out of spin, coming out of spin. The universe, as you look around you, and this is, I'm going to be saying some stuff that certainly I've never heard anybody over at the Resonance Science Foundation say anything like this. This is my own take on it. Well, I have heard him say some stuff like this. It is all spin. Spin is everything. Spin is fundamental. Spin is fundamental. And somehow, so look around you, and what you're looking at in physicality, you're looking at an infinitude of individuated spins. An infinitude of them. Every proton is another vortex of spin. Every planet is another vortex of spin. Every tornado is another vortex of spin. It's all spin. Spin, 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 spinning out of spin, 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 spin. Spin is fundamental. And around you in physicality, you see a virtual infinitude of spins. Now, somehow all of these spins are connected, and when you go back, they're all spinning out of a primordial single spin. And somehow, mysteriously, at the point where all of that meets back in the center of the center of the center of the center, you get back to the center of that primordial spin, that point that we all came out of. That's the point we all share. And that point allows, that's why everything, you can find everything right here. Location is non-local. I came at that at a funny angle, and so I found myself floundering and but it's true. At the center of the center of the center of your spin, you will find that place where we all are, where everything is, and you don't have to go anywhere to find it. They call it universal consciousness. It's that place where we are one, and we are one. We are one. You don't have to fight about that. And as a matter of fact, on planet Earth, we are one. As a human morphogenetic field, we are one. And what we want is we want to know that we are one, and then every single one of us authentically iterate our perfect diversity connected to this oneness that we all are. What we don't want is lockstep and groupthink coming from people who are trying to force themselves to be one because they don't recognize that we already are. How about that? How about that? So, another way to understand this spin that we are all coming out of is to understand, so the inner is reflecting the outer, and as above, so below. You've heard all those sayings, right? Well, what happens is because this is nested universes and fields of data communicating across these scales, how it works is as you go inward, you click in and connect with larger and larger morphogenetic fields in the data stream around you. So when you integrate yourself as a biological being, you connect with the morphogenetic field of the planet, Gaia. When you integrate yourself at the atomic level, you connect with the solar system. When you At the level of the proton, you integrate with the galaxy. And when you get all the way down to the Planck, you integrate with the morphogenetic field of the entire universe. And what that means, anytime that you have integrated with the field, it means that you are in a harmonious concert with it. You are no longer in chaotic, polarized discord, if you will. All of your impulses will now be mutually beneficial to all the rest of the field instead of being, the way we seem to be, which is at odds. We are at odds with our planet all the time. So we've discussed what your inner being, your source energy mind, we're going to call it your inner being. I like that expression. It sort of invokes a gentle, I don't know, I like inner being. I think that's a great way to describe this. This is what your inner being knows. So what your inner being knows is where everything is. Because since it is coming from the center of the spin, and every one of the jillions of spins going on everywhere came out of that individual spin, if you trace it all back, you can tell where everything is. I can see how come your inner being could know where everything is. But besides the fact that it's through this jiggle, this cosmic jiggle of space-time, everything is uploading its information to the whole all the time. And the whole is downloading its information to you all the time through your atomic structure, through your black hole protons, at the very least. I call this the Allness channel. The Allness channel, where the Almighty is communicating with us all about the holographic nature of ourselves, which is what it means you are the whole universe. And I am the whole universe. I have all the information of the universe right here with me right now. And it is my job to iterate my version of the diversity, come from the center of my center and iterate this wholeness in my individual way. And as I do it, using the same ingredients that everybody else has, it's like we're all handed the same cosmic Lego set. The only exception to the entire set that everyone has is themselves. Everything else about the Lego set is common to us all. Only the way you are seeing it is different. And so how are you seeing it? And how do you function? How are you supposed to function? Well, the short answer is get into alignment with your inner being, your pure, positive, know everything self. So actually, I haven't finished this story. I've said what your inner being knows. What is your inner being looking at? Because there's a difference. There's things I know. I know lots of things. But at any given time, what am I looking at, right? Well, it's kind of the same with your inner being, although it's cosmic. It's cosmic and it's way bigger than just you. Of course it is. But what is your inner being looking at? Your inner being is looking at, so just think of this just in its most general sense. True in its most general sense, and then dial it into specifics. What your inner being is looking at is what you want, what you love, what you care about. It's looking at the point where we all come together. It's looking at the point of win-win, 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 win-win. Because that it knows that's what we really want. Because there's only one of us here. And of course it wants to get along with itself. Duh. So that's what we all want. Every single one of us, and I don't care who you are. I don't care how big of a dick or a bitch or an ass you are. I know that what you want generally is the same thing that we all want. Freedom, abundance, fun, relationship, comfort, safety, beauty, clarity, love. That's what we all want. we all want those things, every single one of us. Now, what's the difference between us? Sometimes the difference may just be the way you have set up your fundamental, I call it, what do I call it? I call it primary assumptions. What are your primary assumptions about the object of the exercise? What's the object of the exercise? Well, if you think the object of the exercise is competition, and if you think the object of the exercise is to win that damn 0 point energy game, or not 0 point energy, that zero sum game, if you think the object of the exercise is to win the zero sum game, and like things like he who dies with the most toys wins, if you think that's the object of the exercise, then you're off, because that's not the object of the exercise. The object of the exercise is how can we most fully cooperate with the rest of the biological morphogenetic field around us in order to, for all of us, how can we cooperate more magnificently with one another in order to create the most satisfying experience for all of us, and do it in a sustainable way so that we can just build on it forever and ever and ever. How do we do that? And that's a way different question, isn't it? You know, if you think that the name of the game is you are an individual and you are in deep survival mode and all the rest of the world is against you, and so it's every man for himself, if that's what you think, well, then your actions flowing from those assumptions are way, way different, aren't they? And so it's worth pondering what the truth of the situation actually is. The name of the game is cooperation. And somebody gave me another very pithy little saying about that. Those at the top cooperate. Those at the bottom compete. That's the truth. That's how it works. Because if you're understanding who you really are, you're at the top and you're cooperating with the rest of the field, because the better it gets, the better we do, the better we all do, the better we all do. That's just the way it works. We have been told some of the way that the world operates incorrectly. Duh. It's actually not that hard to see that we have been told some things incorrectly, because there are a few things on planet Earth going amiss. A couple of them that I'll point out is the growing war situations. I don't want war. Nobody really wants war. Not even the people in the war zones want war. I don't even think the people making war want war. But they are fighting over finite resources, and the resources are only scarce because of how we are extracting our energy from fossil fuels. And there isn't enough. Our population is growing, and there isn't enough for the population that we've got. There are millions, billions of people who are living very marginal lives with no access to any kind of energy source at all, except perhaps the scraps of wood that they can gather to cook their food on the edges of the desert, often making the desert grow. We don't need to do that. We can make the desert bloom. Speaking of which, watch the movie, The Lost Century and How to Reclaim It. I'm embedding the the description in the link in my description. That and that 37-minute video explaining the physics paper. Because this is a two-pronged issue, people. Our understanding source energy brings us to two places. One is, as humanity, we find a better energy source. This will decentralize all power. And all of the issues that we're having right now because of our centralized power systems will evaporate. It will just evaporate. It will become a non-issue. People will be able to live on the land on their own. They don't need to be plugged into a grid. They don't need government handouts. They don't need any of that sort of thing. They need it right now because our energy systems are centralized. But it doesn't need to be. And the pathway to get to where we want to be in this situation is we got to understand source energy. You got to understand who you are. So what does it mean on an individual level? How do you use this information about who you are to guide your steps individually? How is your inner being trying to guide you? Well, first of all, it's doing it through your emotions. So you got to understand one thing at the get-go. Your design is such that when you are operating optimally, the way you are meant to operate. So, you take it out of the box and you put the batteries in, you flip the switch, and how is this thing supposed to be operating? Well, I'll tell you how it's supposed to be operating. We're supposed to be in positive emotion at all times, no matter the condition, except for intermittent noticing of things that we prefer less. And then the idea is to focus on the preferred aspect. So it's like, oh, I don't like that. Oh, I know what could make that better. That kind of a pivot. So it's like, I don't like that. Ooh, but I have a great idea about how it could make that better. And then you focus on the better, and then you move that direction. That's how you're supposed to do it. But we've gotten lost in this. We don't understand the system, and so we find ourselves transfixed by, in morbid fascination, locked in observation of all the things that we don't like. And, it's like we've even gotten to the point where we think the way we're supposed to do it is you scan the horizon for things that are displeasing and then focus in on them, and then, whatever, somehow that makes it, it will eventually sort itself out, because it's just a long, long, long way about going about it. We really aren't designed. We're designed to be 95%, maybe 90, I don't know. It depends on how. I'm not privy to actual figures. We're predominantly supposed to be in positive emotion. That negative emotion is supposed to be an indication of something to us. It's like, okay, I got information about that, but when I'm in negative emotion, it means that my inner being is somewhere else and I need to go find her. I need to be with my inner being because she is looking at what I want. If I'm feeling bad, then I'm looking in some other direction. And wherever I'm looking, that's the way I'm going. So I don't want to be in this negative emotion any longer than I have to be. So how do I pivot? How do I pivot? Well, I've got some advice about how to pivot. You got 4 general states of being: specific negative, general positive, specific positive. You would like to be at least in general positive, and the idea optimally is you find a place to be specifically somewhere in positive emotion, in action, in physicality, having fun. That's the idea, right? Well, if you're in a specific negative, how do you get out of it? Understand, first of all, that these states of being general, the general is your decelerator, and the specific is your accelerator. I didn't explain law of attraction. I'm hoping that some of the people that listen to this maybe have some sense of law of attraction, and that which is like unto itself is drawn, and the idea of momentum. And as you take on any thought, whatever frequency it's on, the universe starts handing you more thoughts upon that same frequency. So whatever the spirit is of what you're thinking about, the universe starts handing you more and more of it. It's how come when you start a conversation about, scars or car accidents, more and more ideas start coming to everybody as, you get on that same beam. Its momentum starts ensuing. If you start that momentum from a negative place, that negative momentum just grows. And it's bottomless. There's no getting to the bottom of that. That momentum just keeps growing. Well, how you stop it is there's a couple ways to stop it. One is you go to sleep, because sleep stops momentum. When you start out the next morning, you're kind of fresh and you have a new opportunity to start a new momentum. There's other ways to do it, and that is what this little slide up here is demonstrating. It's when you go to the general, it it slows momentum. So if you're talking about specific stuff that's driving you mad, and you don't know, you can't get out of it, pull back to the general and just say something like, "Life sucks." That's a really good general negative. Now you're not really looking at anything specific. Now you're just looking at this general idea. Maybe you can pivot to a positive. I'm going to show you this slide right now. This is your emotional guidance scale. This tells you where you are in relationship to your two minds. Remember, you have your inner being, source energy, pure vibrational mind. And then you have your mind that it's vibrational too, because everything's vibrational. You're vibrational beings in a vibrational universe, but it's a denser vibration, and you can see this mind that's made of meat ensconced in your skull, attached to your body, that brain. Um, those two minds are thinking thoughts. They're both thinking vibrational thoughts, right? How well those two minds are blending is your emotions. That's how you read your emotions. Don't look directly at the condition that's causing you the discomfort and assume that the answer is directly you have to go change that condition to be something else so that you can feel better. Actually, it's something different. You're designed to feel good all the time, no matter what the conditions. So, there might be something off with how you're thinking. Pick a different thought, because the thought that your conventional self is thinking is not meshing very well with the thought your source mind is having. And by the way, there really isn't anything you can do about your source mind. Your source mind is going to think what your source mind thinks. Your source mind is going to know what is happening in physicality, in the physical universe, all around you, all the time. There's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can do that will distract your source mind from knowing the physicality of everything. God knows everything. The Almighty sees everything. It's true. It's a trite-ism, but it's trite because it's true. It's trite and true. You're not going to stop your inner being from knowing what it knows. And you're not going to stop your inner being from looking at what it looks at. What your inner being will always look at is everything you ever said you preferred. It's looking at good feelings. It is looking at the path that you could take in physicality that would match the good feelings that you crave. It's looking at what you want. What are you looking at? You might be all transfixed, staring at that thing you don't want. You're staring at rape and pedophilia and war and pestilence. You're staring at it, and you can't get away from staring at it. The more you stare at it, the more frightened you become. But it's real, but it's real. I should be looking at it because it's true. But you don't understand that the way you are looking and the way you are feeling is the way that you are navigating your light being through this universe. You are rendezvousing with the better and the worse. And the better, what is determining what you are rendezvousing with and when is how you are lining up between your two beings. So you're not just these two beings, we've mentioned that, but you're also a transmitter and a receiver unto this universe. You are transmitting a signal to the universe, and the universe is receiving it and responding to you, giving you impulses back, guiding your steps. You really are not alone in this. You are not alone. There is order. There is order to be found and order to be followed. There is love is all around us, and your inner being, her eyes are locked steadfastly upon everything that you adore. And I promise you, she's doing it from the pure, clear standpoint, not from any kind of. She's not, say if you're some kind of a perv, she's not focused on the. She's focusing on the win-win point, the point where we all get what we want. She's focused right there. She's focusing on the win point, because there is one. Now, if you've stopped at, win lose, well, you're not seeing it correctly. You might have even stopped at, well, there's win over here, but then there's still those losers over there. The fact is the place where we all converge is where we all get along the best, where abundance for all is the strongest, the most powerful, the currents for abundance for all of us run the strongest, right there at that point where we all share that win position. And it's not just win for like all of us winning, it's win for you. Like we have this idea that, well, I can have some of what I want, but I can't have all of what I want. And quite frankly, it's hard to see this when we translate it in physicality. That's actually the problem. You got to close your eyes and make all the stuff just sort of go away and recognize that in this really deep, profound way, the answer is you can't settle for just parts of what you want. You have to go all the way and not settle for anything less than all of what you want. And all of what we want is all of us doing well on a planet that is thriving, on a planet that is blooming instead of fading, a planet that is surging with life and teeming with life and surging with life energy. That's what we all want, every single one of us. Even the billionaires who are like hogging it all to themselves, what they're doing is they're hanging out on their beautiful, lush, private islands or whatever, gazing in the direction of lushness, somewhere in the back of their mind, imagining that it's not possible for this to be so for all of us, that it is possible for every single one of us to have all that we desire. So I don't think I finished the description. We are vibrational beings in a vibrational universe. And I mentioned the law of attraction and momentum and, that which is likened to a self is drawn and all that kind of thing. The steps of creation are step 1, my life and contrast. The contrast, the things that I like and the things that I don't like. My life has been a mixture of them, hasn't it? Everyone's has. The things that you don't like cause you to focus more upon what it is you do want. So contrast causes you to ask for more. What your inner being is doing is seeing all that is and focusing upon what you want in it. That's what she's looking at. She's looking at what you want. So what are you looking at? What are you looking at? You looking at your neighbor being an ass? Are you looking at the world in fear? Are you looking at all the things you don't have? What are you looking at? And you need to find the way. You dial it back to a place where it's the next logical step and the next logical step. Making those quantum leaps is the problem. When it's so far away that you're seeing it as a quantum leap, then you can't make it. But when you get it to the place where you see it as the next logical step and the next logical step, then your path will unfold beautifully. So here's another representation of this emotional guidance scale. You can see it. I bought this one, actually. Paid these people $50 for 2 copies of this. I still have yet to frame them, but I really like this representation. I like how it shows the momentum growing momentum of the negativity. The thing is, the negative momentums will always peter out because your source energy side is way dominant. The one who is looking at all that is and focusing on what you want, that one is way dominant. There is no actual source of evil. What appears to be a source of evil is just humanity's incredible ability to disconnect themselves and their minds and their thoughts and the momentum of their thoughts from their source energy aspect. Their ability to cut their heads from their hearts is spectacular and magnificent, and the depths of misalignment that we can achieve from that state is pretty breathtaking, all the way down to holocausts and hundreds of millions of people murdered last century, from wars, of all the wars and all the crap. Hundreds of millions of people died last century at the hands of other human beings. We're terrible in our misalignment, but it's only our alignment that is the problem here. We are divine creatures. Divinely autonomous creatures too, by the way, because that autonomy, that divine autonomy that I refer to when I say divine autonomy, it refers to your ability to man the center of your own spin. You can start a positive momentum of your own and man that center using your guidance system to stay in alignment with your inner being, and from that position no one can stop you from achieving every one of your desires. It's only when you step out of that center and look at it from the outside, try to imagine what everyone else wants from you, and then try to play it from that position, because you don't have any power or information from that position. You have to do it from within yourself. You have your perspective of self through self is divine and precious, and you have to pay attention to how you feel, and you have to be unwilling to go very far in negative emotion. You have to be willing to recognize what your negative emotion is, and after you've done it for a little bit and your tolerance is really low, you have a very low tolerance for negative emotion, then you pull out of it quickly and come back into alignment with your inner being. Know that your design is to be positive. If you are in negative emotion, that's still part of your design, but it's now not telling you directly about the conditions out there. It's telling you that you've picked a thought that is not in alignment with your inner being. Your head and your heart somehow have come apart. They have lost connection with one another. There's a place in California called the HeartMath Institute, has been studying the significance of the heart-brain connection for 25 years, doing magnificent work. There's some short techniques, really quick techniques that you can use to kind of link your heart and your brain back up. Greg Braden teaches one of them with the blessing of the HeartMath Institute, because I guess he does it correctly. He has you touch your heart area, the skin on your chest above your heart, because your attention will draw to that place, and then has you breathing through that point, through your heart. Breathe through your heart for a few deep breaths, calm yourself down. Now through certain techniques, invoke a feeling of love, gratitude, or appreciation, something along that frequency. When you manage that, you have lined your heart and your head up. Your brain and your heart have linked up. They tell me that frequency is a particular frequency. I believe it's 0.1 hertz. Pretty low frequency, actually, that links the brain and the heart together. But when they're in sync, now all of a sudden you are in synchronistic, harmonious alignment with the metamorphic field around you. Metamorphic. Yeah, metamorphic field, yeah. So let's see, what else do I want to say about this? We're going to go to this. This is a diagram showing you basically it's a breakdown of your specific mind, if you will. Remember, if these are your two minds, right? Source mind, specific brain mind, then this is a diagram of your brain mind. And if you notice, so it's your lizard brain, which, if you notice, as we became human, we did not trade in our previous brains. We layered over the top of them. They are still informing us. They are still part of the system. They are still regulating the aspects of perception that they are regulating. You can see the lizard brain has basic functions, works with your breathing, temperature, hunger, thirst, balance, reproductive drive, survival, all that. Territoriality, that's your lizard brain, its domain. And then the mammalian brain on top of that, as we moved from being reptiles to being mammals, our consciousness needed to shift. Before, we could just lay our eggs and run and care only about, where's the food, what's moving out there, how do I react to. But now we give birth to something that can't take care of itself. And so now our attention has to be focused on this thing outside of ourselves, and not only focus there, we have to care about it, right? We have to care about it so that we protect it, so that we nurture it until it can take care of itself. And then, whatever. So that's our mammalian brain. And some emotions started coming in with that one too. Some negative emotions, threat and anxiety, and because now you're protective. As a human being, we possess one more layer of brain, the neocortex. This gives us a whole nother level of understanding and framework. Turns out that 76% of this neocortex volume of the human mind comes from human chromosome number 2. Human chromosome number 2. And human chromosome number 2 is a fused chromosome. It is two other chromosomes fused together, telomere to telomere, with redundancies clipped away on both sides, by the way. So this right here is the article from the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, PNAS.org. It is a scientific journal, peer-reviewed. It's where scientists from the different disciplines publish their work to each other, because each other is the one that knows the language, that can understand what they're saying. And then if their peers have any objections, because they've noticed something different, they can, speak up or whatever. This is all peer-reviewed stuff. These people back in 1991, go to pnas.org and find this journal if you want to. You don't have to. Especially if you're a geneticist, go do that, because I bet you'll find it very interesting. Back in 1991, October 15th was when this journal, this particular one, was published. I found it pretty easy to find this particular volume. Then I had to look at every one of the titles of the articles, because I couldn't find a table of contents that just listed the articles. But I found this it was the 40th article in. And it's called The Origin of Human Chromosome Number 2, an Ancestral Telomere to Telomere Fusion. This is the whole abstract here. I couldn't fit it with the title, and I'm not good at tech imagery. Somebody else will help me with this at some point. But what it says, we conclude that this da-da-da that we've been studying, what they did is they did the gene sequencing. They did the readout, and you can see the sequences of everything with the telomeres in the center and stuff on both sides. What they conclude is what they're looking at is this is the relic of an ancient telomere to telomere fusion and marks the point at which two ancestral ape chromosomes fused to give rise to human chromosome number 2. I find that very interesting, and I find that to be some kind of evidence. Now, is it conclusive evidence? I'm not a geneticist, but I find it intriguing. This appears to be evidence to me that we were genetically modified. And it would have happened about 200,000 years ago, whenever our scientists agree that anatomically modern humans appeared on the face of the earth. We used to call them Cro-Magnon man. We don't call them Cro-Magnon. I think it's because it's too hard to pronounce. Maybe it doesn't say it. It doesn't say what they want it to say. Anatomically modern humans says it. Says, yeah, that's us. They appeared some 200,000 years ago, give or take a few centuries. And I think it helps explain why we don't fit in with the natural world quite as easily as we ought to. Why it is so easy for us to disconnect from source. Our psyches are very fragile. Turns out you apply some PTSD to our psyches and we go off the rails pretty easily. We start believing our lying eyes instead of our truthful hearts. You know, we start chasing conditions. We ignore how we feel. We're a very interesting species, and I believe that we are a species that has been assisted in our design. I think one of the reasons that this particular assist was given to us, we have a way, our complex human emotions have a way of singing to the quantum field in a really poignant way. And perhaps that's why they did this to us. Maybe it's just because it's a good idea to have a broader perspective, analytical mind, you know? It raises in me several questions. If indeed it is true that someone assisted us in our design, why did they do it? Who are we? Remember, that's the question of the day. That's the question of the show. Who am I? Who am I? Am I, as human beings, who did this to us? Are we their children? Are we an experiment? Are we a known formula? A beloved recipe? Were we their servants? Their slaves? Their teachers? Their solution to some other issue that they had? Are we, who are we? Who are we? Very, very, very good question. Who are we? And do we still have a relationship with them? Do they know about us? Are we kind of going through our awkward adolescence right now as we try to come to the point where we understand who we are? I don't know. I don't know. It raises a lot more questions than it answers from my perspective, but it also sets off some really interesting directions that we could head off into, just to answering some of these questions. Who am I? Who am I? Where did I come from? Where am I going? How do I make my dreams come true? Well, I'll tell you right now, we need to get off fossil fuels. And all of our dreams will be a heck of a lot easier to achieve once that happens. And that's going to happen a lot quicker if we would understand who we are as source energy. What is source energy? It is this Planck field. This Planck field of, what's a Planck? What's a Planck? It is a frequency. It's the tiniest frequency you can imagine. I believe that the way you come, I'm going to just come to a different slide. I love this little guy. I think he's darling. So what's a Planck? How do you find that tiny little figure? Well, I believe what you do is you take a photon, which is a packet of light, which is very, very small, and it's going at the speed of light, as photons are known to do. It crosses its own diameter. Packet of light going at the speed of light, so it's very, very small. It's going very, very fast, crossing a very, very small distance, right? Very short distance. That's a Planck. It's really, 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 really small. Now, you may wonder, what does a Planck have to do with me? Look at the space around you that you imagine is space. And I'm going to tell you right now that there isn't any space around you. It is all solid pack Plancks. It just is. The whole universe is made of this ether, this Planck plasma, this fluid that makes up the whole universe. And through this Planck field, everything is touching. That's how come your inner being knows everything, because everything is touching. It's transferring all of the information across. Okay, so I did mention that the universe is holographic. So I'm going to give you this illustration so that you understand how the universe is holographic. Let's examine a conventional hologram. How do you make a conventional hologram? You have an object that you're going to scan with a laser, right? Now you take a beam of light, you split it in two. Half of it you redirect by mirrors to a point. The other half of it goes and scans this object, and then is redirected to the same point. At that point, those two beams interfere with each other. In that interference pattern exists all the information of that scanned apple in every bit of it. Through the interference pattern, it's scattered all the information as wholeness. It's not like the stem of the apple went this way and the skin went somewhere. The whole thing is now scattered across the whole field. So that's kind of what's happening across the entire freaking universe, although it's incredibly complex, and the screening mechanism to screen out so that it's not just a cacophony of noise that you can't read. There's all these levels of data and information and screening out of stuff so like you're not seeing the Planck field around you, you're only seeing around you where the Planck field has been thrown into motion, thrown into physicality by a little vortex of spin, a proton that becomes an atom, that's matter, that's stuff. That's what you see. You don't see the Plancks that aren't organized. That they're stochastic and kind of just reverberating in the field, if you will. They're not stochastic, but they're your consciousness is screening them out. It's sort of like the fish and water thing, right? So that's what a Planck is. That's what the universe is made of. That's what you're made of. It's like all of the stuff that looks like different stuff is all made out of the same Play-Doh. And the universe is just this system of becoming. And there's momentum that is becoming. There's flows of things that are flowing from what they were into what they're becoming. And if we would but learn to understand how this flow of momentum happens, how to jump into it, how to understand this win-win scenario, that this universe of incredible abundance. It's like we live in the middle of a freaking 3D printer. The movie, The Lost Century, implies even that extraterrestrials are using a kind of technology where they are creating their starships, their UFOs, directly from the quantum field. And so the materials that their ships are made of are ever so much harder, stronger, and purer because they didn't go dig the stuff out of the ground and then smelt it in some factory and then formulate it on an assembly line and then, turn it into they printed it right from the morphogenetic field that is this universe that we live in. Now, I don't know how to do that, and I don't know anybody that claims that they know how to do that, but just even knowing that that's possible can give you pause about wondering why we are still doing what we're doing on planet Earth. And our not understanding this source energy thing is going to be the death of us if we do not. But don't think about it from that direction. Just get excited about the possibilities that exist for humanity. Keep our eyes focused on what we want. That's what our inner being is looking at. Our inner being is not looking at the trouble we're in. Our inner being is looking square at what we want, how we all come together in this, how that win-win-win-win-win-win scenario plays out, or could play out in 1,000 different ways. Joyful, playful, fun ways that it could play out. That's what your inner being is looking at. And that's why you need to get into alignment with her, because we could all have a great deal of fun with this. Even before we have cleaned up our planet, just that feeling of knowing who we are and how we can fix this and that we're moving in the right direction will bring us a lot of relief. A lot of relief. So let's see, what else do I have left to say? This is another way of envisioning part of what I'm saying so that you can wrap your head around this notion that I am a vibrational being in a vibrational universe, and the vibrations are primary. I mean, as in the vibrations come first. First comes the vibration, and through that vibration, it turns into form. And depending on what the vibration is, it determines the shape of the form. It's just the way the universe works. Vibration first, form second. That's why we need to enlist our emotional vibrational guidance system properly, not haphazardly and superstitiously and incorrectly like we have been doing for centuries. Need to understand our emotional guidance system. But so this right here, I'm showing a bunch of cymatic patterns. What is cymatics? It's the study of the relationship between vibration and form. It was pioneered by a man named Hans Jenny, who started out with a metal plate, and he would sprinkle a granular medium on top of the plate and pipe a frequency through it, and lo and behold, patterns would appear. It wasn't just like the sand wasn't just jiggling around, looking like nothing. It would form patterns. Change the frequency, change the pattern. This right here is cymatic patterns created with some sort of digital device. You pipe different frequencies into it, and it will respond by creating a representative digital pattern. Beautiful, actually. Different frequencies, different patterns. Now, this right here this is more old school. Upper right and lower left, look at that. Those are the metal plates. That's a black metal plate with a light-colored granular medium on top of it sprinkled. And they would put a frequency through it, and it would create these patterns. Change the pattern. Actually, what this looks like to me is that every time they have raised the frequency. And as the frequency raises, that pattern gets more and more complex. And things shift around in it, but the higher the frequency, the more complex the pattern is. Now, the reason that I think that this is interesting, look in the upper left and lower right, those are also cymatic patterns, only they are right there on biological beings. You can see we live in a vibrational universe, and you can see that is a cymatic pattern reflecting vibration. So cool. Cool visual, cool understanding there. Now, another reason why I bring this up, because I think that it illustrates something. Imagine that we live in a vibrational universe, and the vibration of what's going on in the human morphogenetic field, we are always expanding. We are always evolving. We are always growing to the more, to the more, to the more. That's just the way that the vector directs. It goes to the more. And the vibration of our planet is changing. The forms around us are changing. If you look at these cymatic patterns, the ones on the plates, when you change the pattern, when you change the frequency from a lower frequency to a higher frequency, or whatever, however you're changing it, what happens is that pattern changes, and there's a moment between patterns where the old pattern hasn't quite fallen away yet, and the new pattern hasn't quite come into form yet. And it sort of looks a bit chaotic. It looks like a mess, but it isn't really. It's just becoming. And if you are a human being on planet Earth right now, I would suggest that you ponder this and get a bead on the positive forward, what's happening, what's becoming. And if your livelihood, if your safety, if your sense of yourself is based on the old forms, and you are clinging to them, grasping and clinging to them, and they are on their way out, I promise you, you are feeling uncomfortable. All of us are feeling a little bit uncomfortable because our entire financial system is based on fossil fuels and other ungreen kinds of energy. Anything that is not either 0 point energy directly into source, or at least over unity devices, is not green energy. It has to be at least an over unity device, if not plugging directly into the quantum field itself. If it's not that, then it's not a green form of energy, and it's not sustainable forever and ever and ever, and it's not going to give us the kind of energy density that we need to take 10 billion human beings into the 22nd century, or whatever it's going to be. I have every faith that we can do this. I believe that the mathematical roadmap has been laid down, and that is what has to be laid down first for the technology to track afterwards. The other thing that's happening is that our awareness is growing. The way that they were able to keep these devices hidden for 100 years is everybody who was inventing these things had the same mad inventor syndrome. I'm going to make $1 billion, my precious. I want to rule the world too, and nobody else can hear this unless it's, through this patent and da da da. Well, now the secret's out. The secret is out. We do not need to be on fossil fuels, and the people who have controlled these resources for over 100 years have been keeping us on them. Our ignorance is what has allowed that to happen, and our consciousness is going to make it so that no one can keep this new paradigm from us. When you know who you are and what you want, and you focus on what you want, no one can keep it from you. Make sure that your inner being is the one guiding you, giving you the impulses to that win-win-win-win-win-win point that we are all dreaming of. That place of abundance for all of us, and all of us, including all the non-human, delightful playmates that are on this planet, waiting to play with us when we stop killing them. This is almost my last thought. If you know anything about Buddhist philosophy, you will have heard of these, the 5 kleshas, considered to be the root causes of all suffering. In light of the conversation that we've had all morning, you might have a slightly more nuanced take on your understanding of this. See how us not knowing who we are is indeed the root cause of the five kleshas. Identifying with an imaginary self, I see that as over-identifying with your expirational self and being ignorant of your eternal self. Not taking into consideration your source energy aspect, which, by the way, never dies. Gone is fear of death. One more thing I'm going to leave you with is a little story. I love this story because it's so beautiful and poignant. It sort of illustrates the nature of life, and how the becoming and the begoing and the love is always here. So this is the Kafka and the doll story. If you have been one of the very, very few people on this planet who have listened to any of my previous recordings, you might have heard me say this story before, but it's short. So, at 40, Franz Kafka, who lived from 1883 to 1924, who never married and had no children, walked through the park in Berlin when he met a girl who was crying because she had lost her favorite doll. She and Kafka searched for the doll unsuccessfully. Kafka told her to meet him there the next day, and they would come back to look for her. The next day, when they had not yet found the doll, Kafka gave the little girl a letter written by the doll, air quotes, written by the doll, saying, "Please don't cry. I took a trip to see the world. I will write to you about my adventures." Thus began a story which continued until the end of Kafka's life. During their meetings, Kafka read the letters of the doll, carefully written with adventures and conversations that the girl found adorable. Finally, Kafka brought back the doll. He bought one that had returned to Berlin. "It doesn't look like my doll at all," said the girl. Kafka handed her another letter, in which the doll wrote, "My travels have changed me." The little girl hugged the new doll and brought her happy home. A year later, Kafka died. Many years later, the now adult girl found a letter inside the doll. In the tiny letter signed by Kafka, it was written, "Everything you love will probably be lost, but in the end, love will return in another way." And I believe that this story has deep, profound impact on the meaning of our lives. This is it. Love will return. Love is all around us. God is love, and love is everywhere. Yada yada yada. Those trite things, they are the truest, aren't they? So, until my next program, I want to leave you with this message of peace and hope. I believe that through our understanding of who we are and this source energy, that our future is very bright. Very bright. There is nothing that we cannot be, do, or have. We just need to keep our eyes on what we want. Keep our eyes forward. Keep our eyes with our inner being. And so, until next time, may the source be with you.